What if I told you that the secret behind some of the most explosive business success stories, like the rise of Temu, and the key to navigating the biggest business challenge of the next 50 years all comes down to one single idea? And here's the kicker. It's actually not about crushing competitors. It's about creating value. I know, that sounds almost too simple, right? But stick with me. Because by the end of this video, you're going to see why this one concept is the most powerful strategic tool you can have in your arsenal. For those who are new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm a strategy director at a top-tier global consulting firm, and I'm also the business owner of an elite business community here in Tokyo. Over the past decade, I've worked with everyone from Fortune 500 companies to scrappy startups, and I've seen literally thousands of strategic plans cross my desk. And on this channel, I share deep dives into business, wealth, feminine energy, and the elite circles of Tokyo. If that sounds like your cup of tea, hit the subscribe button because we're about to dive deep. You know what's funny? When two marketers meet at a conference, they don't need to ask each other, what is marketing? They just know. And same with accountants, engineers, lawyers. They all have this common understanding of what their field is fundamentally about. But strategy is a different beast entirely. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room with incredibly smart people, CEOs, board members, fellow consultants, and we're all kind of dancing around this fundamental question. What actually is strategy? We hide behind jargon. We throw around words like synergy, disruption, blue ocean, core competencies, and don't get me wrong, these concepts have their place. But sometimes I think we use them as smokescreens because deep down, we're still trying to figure out what strategy really means. Here's what I've learned after a decade in the business. Strategy isn't about having the fanciest frameworks or the longest PowerPoint deck. Strategy is simply a plan to create value for someone else. And that someone can be a customer, an employee, a supplier, anyone. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how this works using one of the most mind-blowing business I've ever encountered. Let me take you back to China just a few years ago. Picture this. Two absolute giants, Alibaba and JD.com, control nearly 80% of the e-commerce market. Their dominance isn't just big, it's fortress level. They've got the network effects, the logistics, infrastructure, the customer relationships, everything. Every expert, analyst, VC is saying the same thing. Don't even try to enter this market. It's over. The game is done. And then seemingly out of thin air appears this shopping app that goes on to completely rewrite the rules of e-commerce. I'm talking about Temu and its parent company Pinduoduo, or PDD for short, to a totally locked down market and didn't just survive, they dominated. The question is, how on earth did it do it? And let me give you a sense of the scale we're talking about here. In just a couple of years, Temu acquired 100 million customers in the United States alone. 100 million. From 0 to 100 million users at a speed that almost unprecedented in tech history. To put that in perspective, it took Amazon almost a decade. Temu did it in roughly 2 years. But here's what makes their story even more incredible. The battlefield they chose. This wasn't some greenfield opportunity or emerging market. This was China, where e-commerce was basically a fortress controlled by two giants with nearly 80% market share and powerful network effects that everyone assumed were impenetrable. And then PDD found a crack in the wall. Alright, so to really understand how we pull this off, I need to introduce you to one of my favorite strategic tools called the value stick. And I promise you, once you understand this, you start seeing it everywhere. I learned about this concept in one of the most transformative classes I took at Harvard Business School, taught by Professor Felix. And let me tell you, this simple framework has changed how I approach every single strategy conversation I have. Here's the beautiful part about the value stick. It's not about crushing the competition. It's about creating value for someone else. So how do we measure this value? The value stick starts at the top with something called willingness to pay, or WTP. This is the absolute maximum a customer will spend on your product before they just walk away. It's their ceiling price. Let me give you a real example. Think about someone walking out of an Apple store with a brand new iPhone. They just paid like $1,200, maybe more. But here's the thing, they're happy. Why? Because their personal willingness to pay was actually even higher. Maybe it was $1,500, $1,800. That gap between what they actually paid and their maximum willingness to pay, that's the value you've created for them. That's their customer surplus. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. At the bottom of the stick, you have the mirror image, willingness to sell, or WTS. This applies to your employees or suppliers. It's the absolute rocket bottom minimum compensation it would take to keep someone at their job. And this is where strategy gets personal, and honestly, where most companies completely miss the mark. Think about it this way. If your office smells like old gym socks, and you have a no working from home ever policy, and your boss micromanages every email you send, what happens to your willingness to sell? It skyrockets. The company would have to pay you a massive misery premium just to get you to show up. I actually saw this play out at a client recently. They couldn't understand why they were hemorrhaging talent to competitors who are paying roughly the same salary. When we dug into it, the answer was obvious. Their WTS was through the roof because the work environment was toxic. Employees needed underpay just to deal with it. But here's the magic. If you make a job safer, more fulfilling, more flexible, more meaningful, you lower their willingness to sell. You create value for them and for the company simultaneously. It's not zero-sum. Everyone wins. The value you create for customers sits between the price and their WTP. The value you create for employees sits between what you pay them and their WTS. And in the middle, that's your profit margin. You captured value. The more total value you create, the bigger the pie gets for everyone. So now, let's go back to PDD. How did they use this value stick to break into that supposedly impenetrable market? Here's what's brilliant. They didn't compete head-on at all. While Alibaba and JD.com were fighting over wealthy urban customers in Tier 1 cities like Shanghai and Beijing, PDD looked at the value stick and asked, what can we create new value that literally no one else is even looking at? Their strategy had 3 genius elements. First, they ignored the big rich cities. Instead, they focused on Tier 3 and Tier 4 cities, smaller towns where customers were totally underserved. These customers had high willingness to pay for convenience and variety, but nobody was serving them well. PDD saw that gap and jumped in. Second, and this is where it gets really clever, they started with a product category that nobody, and I mean nobody, thought could be sold online at scale. Fresh fruit. Everyone else was like, fresh fruit? Online? In China? That's logistic hell. The spoilage, the temperature control, the delivery times is impossible. But PDD saw opportunity where others saw problems. Farmers in rural China had amazing produce, but terrible distribution. Their WTS was low because they were desperate to sell. Urban and suburban customers had high WTP for fresh, affordable fruit, but limited access. PDD just connected the dots. And third, they invented this revolutionary group buying feature. This is where the genius really shines. With group buying, customers could share deals with their friends. If enough people joined, everyone got a lower price. This one feature created a win-win-win. Customers got lower price by buying with friends, which increased their surplus. PDD got viral customer acquisition for basically free and predictable geographically concentrated demand. Farmers saw chaotic logistics transform into simple, manageable orders that they could actually plan for. Everybody won. The value stick expanded for everyone involved. This is what brilliant strategy looks like. It's not about being toughest competitor in the room. It's about finding where you can create the most value and then building everything around them. Now, let me take you from PDD's success story to what I believe is the biggest strategic battlefield of the next 50 years. We are right in the middle of a massive demographic revolution, and honestly, it's one that's going to reshape everything about how business operates. Fertility rates are falling so dramatically that most developed economies are set to lose a huge chunk of their population. And here's the uncomfortable truth. There's basically nothing we can do to stop it. The scale of this shift is staggering. Over the next few decades, South Korea is projected to lose 1/3 of their population. 1/3. China could shrink from 1.4 billion people to just 800 million. Japan, Italy, Spain, all facing similar demographic cliffs. The implication is undeniable. the pool of available talent is shrinking, and is shrinking fast. The tight labor markets we are seeing today, they're just the beginning. The competition for employees is about to become the single most important strategic battleground for basically every company on the planet. Think about what this means through the lens of the value stick. If there are fewer workers, their willingness to sell goes up. They have more options, more leverage, more power, which means if you want to attract and retain great people, you need to create more value for them. This isn't some soft HR department nice to have. This is core strategy. Companies that figure out how to lower employee WTS by offering flexibility, meaning, growth, autonomy, great culture will have a massive competitive advantage. Companies that don't, they're going to get crushed in the war for talent. I see this playing out with my clients every single day. The companies that are winning aren't necessarily paying the highest salaries. They're the ones creating the most value for their employees in the way that matter. So in a world that's constantly changing, with new technologies, massive demographic shifts, AI disruption, you name it, how do you build a strategy that actually lasts? Here's the answer. Focus not on what's changing, but on what isn't. Let me give you an example. Think about banking. The how of banking has changed dramatically over the past few decades. We've gone from physical branches to ATMs to online banking to mobile apps to cryptocurrency. Those are all tactics, and they're constantly evolving. But the fundamental human needs, the what, have stayed remarkably stable. We've always wanted security for our money. We've wanted convenience. We wanted to feel in control of our financial lives. Those needs are timeless. A truly great strategy focuses on those stable, fundamental needs, not the fleeting tactics we use to deliver them. This is true whether you're thinking about your customers' willingness to pay or your employees' willingness to sell. The core principle is exactly the same. Tactics will always change. They have to keep up with technology and competition. But those deep human needs, they're timeless. So here's my challenge to you. Take a second and ask yourself, what stable, fundamental human need is your strategy really built on? Are you creating real value to your customers, for your employees, for your partners? Or are you just competing on tactics that will be obsolete in 5 years? Because here's what I've learned after a decade in strategy. The companies that win in the long run aren't the ones with the flashiest tactics. They're the ones that understand how to create enduring value for the people who matter most. If you found this helpful, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below and let me know what's on your mind. I'd love to hear from you. There's more interesting content coming next week. Until then, go create some value. See you next week.